In this video, I'm going to be talking about a short segment of the Assigned Male comic series by Sophie Labelle in terms of their social impact with regards to gender equality. Sophie Labelle is a trans woman from Canada. She publishes webcomics to Facebook and other social media sites about once a week, and has published several books featuring transgender characters. To give context to the issues that she addresses in her satirical comic strips, transgender people are 4 times more likely to live in extreme poverty, have double the national unemployment rate, and more than half have been sexually assaulted. Transgender people face a wealth of other issues in modern society, including risk of violence, lack of access to healthcare, police discrimination, workplace harassment, and bullying. The comic I will be focusing on today is an anti-narrative bedtime story, where Steffi, a 12-year-old trans rights activist, retells history from the perspective of transgender people to her younger friend. Salient features of these comics is that they are hyperbolized, deliberately provocative, and designed for impact. A great example of this is this strip. The bedtime story is an oral tradition, and it's interesting to see oral tradition being transcribed into the modern comic. In this comic, strong, alliterative language with sexual imagery is used to make a point. Words like subjugate, stripping, sacredness, and enslaving are all words with specifically sexual implications, and mostly with negative connotation. An interesting feature of this comic is the pace of the narrative, starting off slow and then rushing to an unexpected conclusion. And the situational irony here is found in the imbalance between what was expected and what happened at the end. It's also interesting to analyse this comic as a work of art. The comic book style is accessible and light-hearted, and makes sense as a vehicle for social activism. With powerful and well-known images, Joan of Arc in this example, put into the context of the story, rightly or not, to force readers to rethink what they know. Using scrolls instead of speech bubbles gives an air of authority to Steffi's bedtime story, and adds a historical feel. And the clear distinction in drawing style between the story and the wider narrative allows us to distinguish between the two sections and bookends the story. In terms of multimodal analysis, the combination of images and text adds something much bigger than the sum of its parts. Just the images, or just the text, would not have had any real impact, but together they create a story and a message that drives home. Presenting the message as a story, and one with a swift and ironic ending, allows us to process and remember the ideas much better than if it was presented as a logical argument. The human brain is more in tune with story than with logic, and more in tune with image than in text. So having a combination of image, text, and compelling story really helps to get the message across. We could also look at webcomics as a medium for social change. They are far-reaching, and Sophie shares this with the millions and millions of people. They're highly accessible and available to everybody, and they have minimal text and make points mostly visually. How do people react to Assigned Male? With a lot of hate. These are just a small selection of the comments that I found on her Facebook page today. I'm going to cover these up. This shows a desperate need for the art like this, bringing the issues to light. It has a commentary on new laws, guidelines, politicians and religious leaders who oppress transgender people. It shows the bravery needed to express herself online. This webcomic exists because transgender people need to be heard in a society that does everything it can to ignore them. This webcomic is a vehicle for social change because it's accessible, it's funny, and it tells a story.